Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavati Tamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman protect us. May he guide us and give us strength and right understanding. May love and harmony be with us all. Om peace, peace, peace. And good evening, and I hope you had a good, happy Earth Day. And we are reading from the complete works of Swami Ramakrishnananda, one of Sri Ramakrishna's disciples. And it's the end, last couple of pages, of the finite and the infinite in man. And so Atma's going to begin reading, and we will see what he has to say.
You must leap over this ocean of samsara, or ignorance. Otherwise, you are not worthy to be called a man. The more you analyze yourself, the more you will realize your infinite nature. Then these little ambitions of yours, these little troubles of yours, will seem too small for you. This little life will no longer be able to hold you. These little questions about money, name, and fame will seem too trivial for you. You must belittle everything, and then you will not be satisfied with your finite condition. You will say, all these little things are too insignificant for me, who am infinite. Thus belittle your pride of knowledge, your social power, your wealth. Think, these are not intended for me. They're intended for the foolish and ignorant. They're intended for limited beings, but I am limitless. And I must go beyond this life to satisfy my infinite hunger. If, on the contrary, you remain satisfied with this, what is waiting for you? Innumerable deaths. You have seen a man die, and such pain will be yours again and again if you do not realize your infinite nature. The key to unlock the door of infinity is in your hand, but you are like the man who goes about searching for his necklace, till someone comes and tells him that it's around his neck. In the same way, someone must point out that your necklace is there, that what you're searching for you have got already, and this someone is your guru. He is there to remind you that you cannot be born, you cannot die, that you are eternal and infinite.
Yeah, I'm sure we've all experienced that, where we can't find our glasses and find them on the top of our head, or we can't find our keys and find them in a pocket we don't usually put them in, or all sorts of things like that, where we have something and we don't even realize we've got it, and we run around looking for it. And that is the situation we're in. We have the infinite, undivided, unchanging reality within us. That is our nature. It's not that we have it, it's us. That's who we are. So, but instead, we complicate things by trying to figure out how to get rich and famous in this world, and then realize that even if you get that, it's not all it's cracked up to be. People find that if they get famous, then it comes with all sorts of problems. And then you have to find out ways of getting out of those problems. Every time you go to the grocery store or the theater or sightseeing, and oh, look, there's so-and-so. Oh, yeah. And everyone's after you, and you have no peace. You can't do all the ordinary things that most people do without people gawking and running up and trying to get an autograph and all that sort of silly stuff. So that's the difficulty. And if you get wealthy and you end up buying 2 or 3 vacation homes, and then you have to hire staffs, and then you have trouble with your staffs. They don't do what you want them to, and you don't have time to supervise 3 or 4 houses. So then you have to get an assistant supervisor to help you. And it just goes on and on. So it seems that no matter how we try to manage things, they tend to get more and more complex rather than simpler and simpler. So that is the difficulty of Maya. It seems to make us get things more and more complex rather than simpler and simpler. So spiritual life is a process of trying to make things simpler. All right, let's just go on.
The key to unlock the glory of your own self is with you. Use it. Be not led away by the senses. You've drowned your wisdom in the quagmire of sensuality and selfishness. Therefore, you are miserable. Beware of sensuality. The senses are in your way. The wayward mind, this body, both stand in your way. They've deceived you. It's because you believe that you are a slave. That is why you yield to them. The cause of this delusion is in the senses. Do not let your senses rule you. Do not let the mind rule over you. The army should not be allowed to lead the commander-in-chief. If it does, then the battle is sure to be lost. The commander-in-chief alone must lead. Be the commander of your senses. Be the commander of your mind. Make them obey you absolutely. Be their master. Unlock the shrine of infinite bliss and enjoy the treasure hidden within.
Oh, that's so true. We have to be the master of our mind and our senses. There's nothing wrong with enjoying a good dish of ice cream. It's just, but you can't let your desire for ice cream to rule you. Similarly, with all these little desires, nothing wrong with having something that's enjoyable, but you can't run after these things of the senses and have them rule you and take up all your time. Because if they come and they're there, it doesn't matter, it's fine. But if they're not there and you hanker after them, that's not fine. That's where you're letting them rule you rather than you ruling them. So, and we've all experienced that kind of thing as well. It's interesting too how, you read about something in the newspaper or an ad or something, there's a billboard or something catches your eye and it tells you that there's this new vacation spot or it's so beautiful and you just have to see there. And so pretty soon you say, let's go there. Oh, we have to go there. And so then you have to make the arrangements and then you have all the difficulties of the flight and the packing and all the check-ins and the flight's delayed and then you end up having to change planes where you didn't expect to change planes and then you're stuck somewhere and then it goes on and you wonder why you ever left home. All of these things can just lead to more and more difficulties. All right, well, I think that ends this section, doesn't it? So we're ready for the next one. Fortunately, this section wasn't infinite. It was finite. All right, so the power of the spirit, section 6, is our next topic. And let's see what Swami Ramakrishnananda has to say.
In this world, we no doubt see that a man who does not glorify the Lord may live a successful life. Often those who have no moral standard, who oppress the poor, who lord over the good, appear to live happily. And in many ways, wrong seems to prosper. But this material power wins the victory only for a few days. In the end, God always comes out victorious. It is the spiritual power that endures. The power of Napoleon or an Alexander the Great is nothing compared to the power that those men have who never shed a drop of human blood and never cared to seek for power. I can prove this. What is man? Man is mind. When you control your own mind, the art which shows you that will shows you how to control all other minds. If you can solve one problem by the rule of 3, you can solve all other problems. The principle remains the same for all. So if you've learned to control the force working through your own mind, it's easy to control the same force elsewhere, for mind is everywhere alike. The teacher is one who has learnt the art of controlling his own mind. The great ones, like Christ or Buddha, who have conquered the world, did so because they had conquered themselves.
And of course, there's really only one consciousness here. So the more spiritually developed you are, the more you are tuned into that connection, that you are that consciousness that is the infinite consciousness that just happens to be manifesting through your particular body-mind complex at the moment. But the source of that consciousness is one with the consciousness that manifests through all the other finite body and mind complexes. You know, also, it came to mind when he was talking here about how some people seem to get away with doing all sorts of things and living perfectly well. But you know, it shows on their face. If you look at the various people that are in the news, political leaders, or even other famous people, actors or business people or something, and you know what kind of character they have, it usually shows in their face. Usually people that are not kind to others, that are just out for themselves, that have done all sorts of crooked things. It's very difficult to hide that in the way you look. Those samskaras show in the way people look. So they may think they're getting away with it, but it really shows right through their face. And of course, so if you're terribly sensitive to these things, you can pick up on that kind of energy just when somebody walks into the room. Sometimes animals are very sensitive to that. You find that animals are very friendly to most people, and then all of a sudden somebody else comes in and they're not friendly at all. And you just wonder why. Well, maybe they can sense something that you can't. I think sometimes animals, since they don't have a lot of these other distracting powers of mind, can sense things on a more intuitive level. All right, so let's go on.
The power of spirit is infinitely greater than the power of matter. But what is spirit and what is matter? Whatever can be felt, conceived, thought of, seen, or heard is matter. It is the object, something that can be known. Spirit is not all this. Put a not to all these, and that will define spirit. Matter is heavy. Spirit is not heavy. Matter is limited. Spirit is unlimited. Matter is changeable. Spirit is not changeable. All that is not matter is spirit. So by knowing what is not matter, we know spirit indirectly. But what am I? We think that this I is the name of the body, and we identify ourselves with the body. But this I is something else. The body is destined to die. This I shrinks from death. The body is dull and stupid. But this I is eager, hungering to learn. This body is unconscious. This I is ever striving to be more and more conscious. So all the tendencies of this I are away from the body or matter. And if we have the spiritual tendency, we must have come from spirit. All the great teachers have taught us, do not think that you are this bundle of flesh and blood. This idea is the offspring of ignorance. You are not made to live on what the world can give you. You are self-existent. You are beginningless, endless spirit. You are naturally conscious. Eternally you are existent. Sword cannot pierce you. Fire cannot burn you. Water cannot wet you. Air cannot dry you. This is your true nature.
Would you love to have had the, or it would be fun if he and Mary Baker Eddy had been able to have a nice conversation over these kind of thing. They would have found a lot of things in common. They would have had a good conversation. So this idea that you're not this matter, but that you're spirit, and you concentrate on that idea, and then you can overcome some of the problems of the body. So that would be her idea, I think. So what he's emphasizing here is that our true eternal nature is not of the physical matter, but that it is of the spirit. And it's difficult for us to conceive of all this because we're so identified with what we see and feel and hear and touch. All of our senses are continually telling us that, oh, I'm this body with this mind and all these sense organs that go out and sense everything in the world. And so that's the orientation which we are so habituated with. So it's important to remember that in reality, you are the spirit that's simply working through this body and mind and senses. Why? Because in order to know itself, the one became many. The one split into subject and object, so that there would be an object for the subject to know. And so that is our situation. But in reality, we are really one with everything, and there is no separation. And of course, people that have near-death experiences or out-of-the-body experiences experience this separation of spirit from their matter. They sometimes see their body sitting there on the operating table, or if it's an out-of-body experience, it's not associated with near-death. They realize that they're no longer tied to the physical body and that they can fly off in different directions. So these kinds of experiences, of course, show them that they're really not this body and mind. People that have these kind of experiences no longer have the ordinary fears that so many people have of dying and of difficulties of the body, because they know that in reality they are not tied to this body-mind complex. Okay, let's go on.
Ask yourself whether you wish to live or whether you wish to die, whether you wish to be ignorant or whether you wish to be all-knowing. We all want to be all-knowing. Therefore, by nature, we must be all-knowing. We all want to be blissful. Therefore, we must be all blissful. And we must be eternal, because we never want to die. A fish taken out of water will not care for the greatest luxury or honor on land. You may lay it on the throne and offer it everything, but it will say, "Don't put me in the dirty water even, but do not keep me on land." This is because water is its natural element. We judge the nature of an animal by its likes and dislikes. If in the same way we look to our own likes and dislikes, we can tell what is our real nature. Does not everyone like to be sat or existent? No one wishes to die. Does not everyone long for unlimited knowledge? Does not everyone desire unbroken happiness? So the great teachers have found out that the nature of man is Satchidananda, eternal life, knowledge, and bliss. He is not the material body. He is not the subtle body. He is not all these koshas or sheaths, but he is that which he is desiring. The more we think of ourselves in this way, the more our infinite nature will manifest itself.
Right, and of course, suicide is not the answer. If you think that the answer is, well, then it would be better to be dead. You have to accept life as the experiences needed in order to advance spiritually. So in dualistic terms, you can think, well, the Divine Mother has put me in this play of hers. This is her divine play. And so while I'm in this divine play, I have to go along with it. I've been assigned this job. And it's being like if you were an actor and you were assigned a part in a play. You don't just suddenly decide you don't want to do this and walk off and leave everybody stranded. And the producer and director and and series struggling to figure out what they're going to do. You stick it out and you do the best you can in the part of drama that you're given. But you realize all the time that you're just an actor in the play. You're not really the character in the play. You're really something else. This is just a script that you've been given. And it gives you a sense of detachment and an ability to remember that you are really the infinite, undivided, unchanging, or Satchidananda. It's often said that Satchidananda is the positive way of looking at who we really are, and the infinite, undivided, and unchanging is looking at it in a more negative way. You're not finite, you're not divided, and you're not changing. Whereas Satchidananda is that you are existence absolute, consciousness absolute, and bliss absolute. So that is our true nature. And it's just that we have trouble remembering it. So we have to figure out ways of reminding ourselves all the time of our true nature. All right, let's continue.
It is not possible to know the infinite if we are finite. We must first know that we are infinite. We wish to marry the infinite. We must therefore belong to the same caste. A Brahmin boy can only marry a Brahmin girl. So to win the hand of the infinite, we must prove and know that we are infinite. Matter is that which is limited and which limits. We now feel limited by coming in contact with matter. We must realize that we are not matter, but spirit. We must convince ourselves that we are spirit by differentiating ourselves from matter. We must join ourselves to God. To do this, we must conquer all egotism. This I is the greatest barrier between ourselves and God. It hides our God from us.
Yes, Sri Ramakrishna used to say that the ego is the greatest obstacle. And once you realize that you are not the doer, you will be free in this very life. So that's the idea being represented here, that this egotism is really this, you could say it's this genetic invention within Maya that allows us to survive in this world. And so it's the genes want to reproduce and continue on in a succession of offsprings. And so they are designed to do whatever they can to exist. And so that gives us this ego consciousness. And since it's completely a product of Maya, it is the chief obstacle that we have to overcome. All right.
Do I belong to myself? Can I do what I wish? Or am I guided by a higher power? If I analyze my life, I shall find that I'm a plaything in the hands of an infinite power. I'm not my own master. If I were, I could get what I like. Who does not wish to have everything to gratify his desires? But no one succeeds in getting all that he wants. No matter how rich a man is, he always wants something. Do we find anyone who's perfectly happy? Go to the Emperor of Russia. Go to any prince or king and ask if he's happy. They have power, they have wealth, they have apparently everything, yet not one of them will say that he is truly happy. This is because no joy can be found in selfishness. It is only when we forget ourselves for someone else that we become happy. And lasting happiness is ours only when we have forgotten ourselves wholly for God.
Yes, and if you like history and you study history and you look at all the rulers of the world and how they did, we know that there are some of them that have been very good and some of them that have been very bad. And you realize that the ones that were very good were looking after the welfare of others without trying to steal from people outside their country. So they try to serve the people within their country without going and conquering the whole world to try to make their situation better. And they're raised with this idea that they have a responsibility. They have a job to do. That it's not just, oh great, I'm the king and queen, and I can do anything I want and have all the pleasures I want and order people around and have slaves and so forth. That doesn't make them happy. It's that they take on a responsibility, and they're the shepherds of their people. And so they're doing it for others, and they are the great enlightened monarchs and leaders of the world. And it's the same thing with political people. If you look at the various politicians, it's the ones that are there to serve that really are the great politicians, not the ones that are doing it so that they can own another yacht and another vacation home and an airplane and so forth. So that's a great lesson for us. All right, let's go on.
It is the highest duty of a man to love God above all things. This love must be incessant and disinterested. We must never cease to love him, but not because he has powers to satisfy our desires. We must not love him for what he gives, as people seek out a rich man and follow him about and flatter him. Then, being satisfied or disappointed, go away. Such time servers are not real devotees. Their love is not for the Lord, for what they can get from him. They're not God worshippers, but mammon worshippers. What is disinterested love? The little child loves his father. That father may be poor and wretched, yet the child will run and jump in his lap with joy, but not in the lap of the rich man who comes with him. Such should be our love for God, and it must be unceasing. We must never forget him for a moment. Then only will our higher nature be free to act. If we really love the Lord of the universe, we shall no longer care for the temporary things of the world. When love for the Infinite One awakens within us, then all these small worldly satisfactions, name, fame, property, position, will seem worthless to us. If a man can claim a millionaire for his father, oh, he will be so proud and so secure in his father's wealth that he will fear nothing and ask nothing. So if we can once learn to regard the Lord of the universe as our real Father, then we shall lose all anxiety and greed.
Right, yeah, so when he says that the love has to be incessant and disinterested, disinterested in the sense that you're not interested in getting something out of that love. So it's not like a sort of a haphazard love or something that's not very intense, but it's incessant. So, of course, we can see in the lives of, say, Sri Ramakrishna, how the real devotees stuck with him in spite of his throat cancer. Others said, well, gee, he can't even cure himself, so why should I bother being his disciple? You see, they're not interested in the love for him, but in what they could have gotten out of him through some sort of powers that he might have. The problem of Job is taking it the other way around, where the disciple is tested over and over again to see that he is really devoted to God, and doesn't matter how many difficulties in life he faces, he's still devoted to God. He doesn't give up his devotion to God just because he's had problems in the world. Again, you have to think, well, I guess I'm burning off a lot of old karma if I get a lot of difficulties in the world. That's the best way to look at it. If things come, they're lessons. There's something I'm supposed to learn here. Maybe there's something I've been too attached to, and that's why I'm getting this problem. Maybe there's some karmic debt that I have to pay to certain people, and so these difficulties are coming. So if there's somebody that you end up taking care of in your life and you find it a kind of a grudging responsibility, well, you realize, well, maybe there's something I need to learn here, or that I need to learn to be more of a serving person rather than one who just looks for ways of people serving me. All right, let's go on. We're almost finished with this section.
We fear and desire because we do not know what we are. The light of the lamp above us there is brilliant, but if the chimney that surrounds it were not transparent, the light would be obscured. So each of us is a great light. But that light has been obscured by our ignorance, because we identify ourselves with the body and are attracted by the things of this world. Incessant and disinterested love for God, however, will remove all these obstructions. When we have been able to give our whole heart to Him, revelation will come to us, which will make the little riches of the world, the little joys of the world, the little sorrows of the world seem as nothing. It is these narrow earthly attachments which have covered up the infinite nature of man, which makes him think that he is this limited human being. When they are removed, then at once he will realize his own nature. And when he realizes his own nature, he will know that he is the Son of the infinite and eternal Lord of us all.
Right, so that paragraph just merely summarizes everything that he's been saying through the whole section, that it's not the little joys and the things of the world that we need to want to seek and so forth, but it's knowing that our true nature is one with Brahman, and that's what gives us joy. And he's taking a devotional attitude here as well, that it's the love of the Lord that helps us to get over that ego sense and allows us to realize that. So the next section, which I think we have time to start, we have about 10 minutes. So that's section 7, and it's titled, Why This Love of Self, with a capital S.
In this world, nothing is so dear to us as our own self. Other loves are secondary. Love for ourself is primary. But why do we love our own self more than anything in this universe? To answer this question, we must first know what we love and what we do not love. We love beautiful things, not that which is ugly. We love sweet words, not harsh ones. We love those who are pleasing to us, not those who displease us. We love good dishes, not unsavory ones. We love to be in the cool shade of a wide-spreading tree and not on the burning desert. In short, we love whatever harmonizes with our nature. We do not love that which does not agree with it. What has the power to make us happy that we love? What has not the power to make us happy that we hate? We do not like a sharp-tongued man or woman. We do not like repulsive sights. We do not like harsh sounds because they do not make us happy.
It's funny, though, we often will watch some sort of movie or sitcom or something, and we find it funny because somebody is particularly stupid, or they get angry over silly things, or they make funny noises, or whatever it is. So we often can find the things that you really don't like as being humorous sometimes. There was a record album that came out when I was growing up. What was it? Something in Jonathan Edwards, can't remember her name. Anyway, they did this album of he'd play the piano and she would sing, and she would sing off key, and he'd play all sorts of mistakes through the thing, and it was hysterical. And so sometimes we can find these things funny, but usually we find them rather disturbing if it's not done as a sense of entertainment. So perhaps one way of having to deal with things that don't seem so pleasant is to try to think of them as humorous. I don't know. So if you look at comedy, you'll often find this to be the case. Okay.
If then love is based on the power to give me happiness, and I love myself most, then I must have the power to give myself the greatest happiness. I must be the most pleasing thing to myself in the universe. And since I never cease to love myself, no matter how much I grow, there must be within me a source of happiness on which I can call indefinitely. I see, therefore, that what the sages tell me must be true, that I am the abode of eternal happiness. You are not 3.5 cubits in length, they say, full of troubles and miseries as you imagine yourself to be. Bliss is your nature. You think you are helpless, that you are dependent on the world for everything? Whereas you are, by your very nature, all blissful. This self, which I know, however, is certainly not all blissful. It does not always please me or make me happy. It cannot be this self, then, that I love. On the contrary, as I begin to know myself better, I find that this thing which I call myself is the real cause of all my misfortunes and sufferings. In it is localized all that which limits and deludes me. It is the real seat of ignorance, or Maya. And only as I get rid of the idea of ego does Maya lose its hold on me.
Yeah, so that's the difference between the little self and the big self. We love the little self, but it's a reflection of the big self. And so it's remembering that it's the real self, with a capital S, that is what we're really interested in. But we are fooled by the house of mirrors of Maya to think that it's something in the little self. And so he goes through this analysis here to show us that it's not the little self that makes us happy. It's really the infinite nature within us. Okay?
This is true. Pull out the foundations and the whole house will collapse. Similarly, take away the ego, and the whole structure of Maya will fall. Now you think you are one with the body, that you have risen somewhere and you must set somewhere, that you are man or woman, weak or strong, Brahman or non-Brahman. These are all the qualifications of the ego. And if you analyze, you will find that they all rest on the body. So that ego and body must be one. But you existed before the body, and you're going to exist after the body. Therefore, you cannot be the body. Hence, the ego is not you. In this way, you can rid yourself of the idea of ego, and once you have gone behind the ego, in a trice Maya, and egotism will vanish. Then you will realize the state of perfect calmness, and know yourself to be something which is neither the body, nor the mind, nor the ego. It is, however, you must go beyond all these to the eternal reality of your nature. And when you can do that, you will begin to know what happiness means. Then all the world will seem nothing to you but a playground. The whole universe will be a vast stage. You will play your part of man or woman, Brahman or non-Brahman, with the same gusto as a king plays the part of a sweeper in the theater of his palace.
Yeah, and of course, sometimes we lose one faculty or another of this body-mind complex. And so you might have an accident and lose a limb, or lose the use of a limb, or you might find that one of your senses gets dimmed. Maybe the eyesight begins to go, or you begin to lose the sense of hearing or something. And while this is devastating to you at one level, you realize that the you is still you. You're saying you are the same person. You may have lost a little ability within this realm of the physical, but at the spiritual level, you're still the same. You haven't changed a bit. And you realize that as you've grown up, that you've developed all sorts of things that have helped you. You've developed all sorts of talents and skills and so forth. But you were the same you that you were when you were a little baby. That hasn't changed. So if you can meditate on that idea that throughout all the changes of the body and the mind, that you're still you, that you will begin to be able to transcend this idea of the little self and reach the true self. Or perhaps you witness somebody who's develops dementia of some sort, and you realize that your loved one is still there. It's just that they're not functioning the same. And so they're not their mind. Their mind has changed quite a bit since the onset of the disease and continues to change and decline. And yet your loved one's true self is still there. And so through all of this, we realize that this body-mind ego complex is not the real you. The real you is one with Brahman. And that's why we love other people, as the Upanishad says. We love the spouse for the sake of the spouse, and we love the children for the, not for the sake of the spouse, rather, but for the self within the spouse. And we love the children for the sake of the self within the children, and so forth and so on. So, as Swami Ramakrishnananda, the comic Swami, used to say, the meaning of guru is, gee, you are you. So, you are the real you. So, let's continue and see what Ramakrishnananda has to say, and this should be our last paragraph.
Now, if someone asks, who are you? Well, you reply, I'm Mr. So-and-so, with such a name belonging to such a family, and tall or short, fair or dark, ill or well. And you keep thinking, if I do not get food, I will die of starvation. If I do not get water, that will kill me. If I do not get air, I will smother. To jump suddenly from this habit of thought to that other pole that you are infinite is not possible in a moment. You will say, oh, I'm feeling hungry at this instant. How can you tell me I have no hunger? I'm just now suffering from thirst. How can you say that I am not thirsty? Intellectually, it is easy to grasp this idea that you are infinite. When it comes to practice, it is very difficult. For you are sure that you must earn your living. You must seek the favor of this one who can help you find a position, or of that other who can procure for you some other advantage. You cannot suddenly form a totally new habit of thought. The change must be gradual.
Well, we will have to wait till next week to find out how we institute this gradual change. But of course, what I would say is, again, that you just have to realize that you're in this realm of Maya at the moment, and in this perspective, we have to try to play the game the best we can, but be as detached as we can from the results. So that seems to be the secret. And we have to do this gradually, little by little. Of course, we do try to overcome these ideas of thirst and hunger. That's why people go on fasting for a day or two for special holidays. They might do that so that they have to keep reminding themselves that they're not the body and the mind that's thirsting after food and water. Not easy, but if you can do it for a day, that's so much the better. So that helps us to get over these things. All right, so next week we will continue with this and find out more of the answers to this dilemma of how to overcome this sense of ego and the sense that we are this body-mind when we're really not stuck in this body and this mind. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman floweth all that is, yet Brahman is still the same. Om peace, peace, peace.
Very good.